Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the SEC Mafia Football Podcast. I am Randy from Mobile. Alongside, we have Tyler from Tuscaloosa, uh, bringing you another episode previewing SEC football, talking all things SEC football. I guess tonight may end up being a little bit of a shorter episode as we just have three games to discuss this week. It's a significant episode as we do have the college football playoff starting. We do have Tennessee and Ohio State in action Saturday, Clemson and Texas as well in action. We do have one SEC bowl game, Florida and Tulane and the Gasparilla Bowl to kind of kick things off for the SEC. So a little bit of a short week, condensed down, but still a lot of big things happening. So what you got going on, Tyler?
Nothing much. You know, holidays are here, jam-packed full of family, fun, presents, New York trips, things like that. Just excited to be back this week to talk about some college football, some SEC ball coming up. Like you said, got the Gasparilla Bowl with the Florida Gators and Tulane coming up. And obviously, Friday and Saturday we have the first round of the new extended 12-team playoff. So exciting football coming up this week. Before we get too in depth, as always, this is our social media handles. We have our X handle down below, as well as our email and Facebook. You can look us up on YouTube. Should bring you right to our SEC Mafia YouTube page. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. Get involved with us on our social media. Email us any emails you want to, and we promise we try to answer everybody's emails. We try to answer everybody's tweets, and we try to respond to every comment under every YouTube page. So please like and subscribe, and give us a follow, man.
You can also find we just added the SEC Mafia group page on Facebook. So you can join that group page and hopefully we can kind of grow that and get people from all over the SEC. Kind of get a little bit of banner going back and forth, talk a little bit of trash about your team. Definitely want to keep it clean. There will be no profanity, none of that stuff, no threats or any of that stuff. Just good humor, good fun, just a little bit of ribbon, things like that. But, just nothing too crazy. Just a place where we can just kind of go and interact and just kind of shoot the breeze about SEC football. So, again, that is the SEC Mafia Facebook group page.
Absolutely. All brand new addition to the SEC Mafia mobsters.
We're continuing to expand our territories, man. I figure before long we'll take over the world.
Just like the college football playoff, man, we're just going to keep expanding. I mean,
Absolutely.
at this rate, let's just add 134 teams to the college football playoff and just let it be a brawl. I mean,
absolutely.
And so with our first game, have the Florida Gators taking on Tulane. Green Wave. Roll Green Wave, baby. Roll Green Wave. In the Gasparilla Bowl, Raymond James Stadium, Friday at 2:30 p.m.
Yeah, kind of funny about this. You have to be very, very old or you have to be kind of a SEC historian. But we actually have a rematch of former SEC teams here, as Tulane used to be in the SEC. So I guess this is kind of a rivalry renewed here between the Green Wave of Tulane and the Gators of Florida. But this is a game in which, Florida's favored 13.5. Darian Mensah, the quarterback from Tulane, the redshirt freshman who had a terrific year, led them to a 9-win season. He has actually entered the transfer portal. He will not be participating in this game, and that is going to be a major blow for Tulane, and that's going to kind of be a common theme for these bowl games. Whenever you're talking about the bowl games and not the playoffs, the number one question is going to be who's playing versus who is opting out. There's kind of two ways to look at this. If you're the type of person that you're kind of a new age college football fan and you don't have kind of respect for the pageantry, or not necessarily respect, but it just doesn't mean that much to you, you may look at your team's bowl game and you may be thinking, I hope that everybody that is declaring for the NFL, who is transferring or who is graduating, I wish that they would just opt out and we could treat this bowl game like a second spring practice to start building for next year. That's kind of one way to think about it. And then you've got the old heads, that kind of look at the bowl games as being a reward for this previous season. You may want your guys to come in there and for the players to opt in the bowl game and to finish the season out strong. So there's kind of two ways to look at it. Um, I'm sort of indifferent on it. I can get both sides. On one hand, you do need to finish what you started and kind of finish this season out strong. But if you can get a head start on next year, then maybe some of the upperclassmen opting out and you getting a start on next year could be beneficial for you.
I'm the same way, and looking through the lens of it from the inside, um, and you'll hear me say looking through the lenses from the inside a lot on this podcast, just because I did spend a little time with the team at Alabama. But beside the point, looking through the lenses of the inside, it is a reward even for your staff members and guys that come in every day and have a job and they treat it as a job. It is a reward for them because bowl practice is a little bit more laid back. You have a little bit more free time. Classes are out. It's just you hanging out with your buddies. You're going to work. You're hanging out after class. Same with the players. No class. You don't have the stress of this test coming up. And I love bowl season. Bowl season was my favorite time. You had Christmas coming up, so you were playing, Xbox games with your boys at night. You would wake up the next day, go to work, hang out, get a couple free meals here and there, and then next thing you know, you're in Dallas for a week, getting to participate in a bowl game, or you're in New Orleans for a week, getting to participate in a bowl game. So it is a great thing for football players, staff members, coaches. It's fun, and especially for families of players and staff members. They get to travel along with them and be with them, especially around the holidays. So it's just a good thing all around for everybody just to participate and just go out there and play for the guy next to you.
Well, I also will say this about the opt outs, and I may be way off base on this, but I can think of two teams in the last 5 or 6 years that went into the bowl season and just completely anyone and everyone that thought they were going to the NFL opted out and they got the doors blown off of them. And the very next year, the head coach lost his job. One was in the 2020 season. The Florida Gators lost in the SEC championship game. I believe they went on to the Sugar Bowl to play Oklahoma, and you had a bunch of players off of that Oklahoma team opt out of the bowl game, and they got beat down by Oklahoma. Very next year, Dan Mullen gets fired. Uh, Last year, you had Florida State have all their players opt out, and they actually, just got hammered by 60 points by Georgia. Mike Norvell hasn't got fired, but look at what happened to the team. They went 2-10 this year. So to me, I kind of look at the opt outs. When I see a team that has a bunch of players opting out, the first thing that comes to my mind is I start questioning their culture.
Culture.
What kind of culture do they have? Georgia didn't have a lot of opt outs last year. Look where they're at this year. You go back to the 2022
Two.
season when you had Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Brian Branch, Jameer Gibbs, several guys that we're seeing play in the NFL right now opt in and play in the Sugar Bowl against Tulane, not Tulane, but play in the Sugar Bowl against Kansas State. Uh, and then the very next year, Alabama's in the playoffs. So for me, when I'm looking at all the opt-ins and all the opt-outs, it's more of a culture type thing to me. I believe that teams that have a good culture, when it really is a brotherhood, you hear that term so much about locker rooms is it's a brotherhood. It's a brotherhood. The teams that really carry that mantra and it really is a brotherhood, those teams really are going to come back and play in a bowl game. It's not going to be meaningless to them. They're going to like you say, they're going to be practicing over Christmas. They're not going to have classes. It's going to be more laid back, and it's really going to give them that chance to go out with their brothers
Mm-hmm.
and go play one last game. To where when you've got a team with a bunch of guys that are just opting out, it's hard for me to really buy into their culture. And for what I'm seeing with Florida a few years ago, Florida State last year, you really see that culture. maybe is lacking in those areas.
I have not checked, but I'm not sure if, well, we know Mensa from Tulane's opting out, but I was trying to see if Micah Bridges or Micah Bridges or whatever the running back's name for Tulane, if he has or he has not. I know he is a sophomore, I believe, this year, either a sophomore or a junior, so he's got another year of eligibility. But it seems to me they will be relying heavy on him as he averages 5.3 yards a carry, uh, over 1,000 yards rushing, 15 touchdowns. Birmingham native in Mackay he is there. So
Tulane also runs the ball at 63%.
percent,
So
yeah.
basically 6 out of every 10 plays from the Tulane offense is going to be a running play.
Hmm. So they will rely run heavy. Have you heard of any
Playing
offense?
playing well, I'm sorry, they're playing a Florida team that allowed the second most rushing attempts per game and the third most rushing yards in the SEC this year. And they are going to be without a couple of defenders, Jack Pyburn and TJ Searcy. They both will be out for the Florida Gators.
Okay, okay, yeah. Um, Still gonna have to take the Gators in this one.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The way DJ Lagway, he started 6 games this year for Florida. Florida was 5-1 in those games. The one loss was to Georgia, in which he was actually knocked out of that game. They were definitely in that game up until that point. The way he played, and especially the way they played down the stretch, if he's playing in this game, Darian Mensah for Tulane not playing in this game, to me, that's a big enough X factor. I'm taking Florida, and I like Florida to cover the spread in this game as well.
Yeah, with Mensa being out, they are going to run heavy. But with how Florida's defense has sort of stepped up, and especially with Lagway playing in this one, and not only all those factors, but if you look at Tulane's schedule, every Power Four team or opponent they played, they only played two in the regular season. With Kansas State and Oklahoma, they lost to Power Four opponents by at least a score or more. So I'm going to have to take Florida in this matchup, and I'm looking for them to cover the spread as well.
Yeah, and not only that, the last time that we watched Tulane was on Championship Saturday, to where they were beat 35-14 by Army. Of course, Army has a strong running attack. We know that DJ Lagway can hurt you with his legs as well. At the end of the day, I just think Florida has a better roster, and I might would give Tulane a chance in this game. May even they may even be close to being favored if they had their quarterback, but without Darian Mensah, I don't give them much of a chance.
No,
I'm taking
absolutely not.
Florida. I'm taking Florida in this one, 31-17.
Everybody look at the camera. I literally just wrote this down as my score. I'm not even joking. I wrote it down 31-17, baby. Great minds think alike. We're locking it in, baby. Locking it in.
You,
And I'm
you know
betting
what
my
that
mortgage
means,
on the
right?
Florida Gators.
You know
Yeah,
what that means, right?
it, Tulane's going to go out there and they're going to curb stomp Florida is essentially what
Tulane
that
by
means.
Tulane by 50.
All right. First round. Can you believe it? It's already December 20th almost, or
It's
21st.
insane. It is
I
insane.
mean, you blinked and we look back and it was August and you blink and now Alabama fans are going crazy because we missed the playoffs and the portal and now it's the first round of the 12-team playoff. You blink and it's gone. You blink and it's
Absolutely.
gone. It's wild.
You sit here and you wait for college football season all season long, and it seems like it just drags by. And then it gets here, and you're so fired up and excited. And like you say, it's gone, man.
It's
It is
gone.
gone.
It's gone.
It seems like we were just kicking off the weekend, the first weekend of college football season a few
Yeah,
days ago, and
absolutely.
here we are in the playoffs. The one good thing about the playoffs being expanded, um, we don't have this long dead period in December anymore. It used to be to where you'd have the SEC championship game the first Saturday in December, and then under the
Yep.
old BCS days, uh, you wouldn't have the BCS national championship game until like the 10th. So you'd have bowl games not start till around New Year's Eve, and it was like almost a month with no action. With here, um, you had Army Navy last weekend, bowl game started, and boom, the very next weekend here, the 20th, you've got playoff games, and these will carry us out for an entire month. So there is still a month of meaningful football to discuss and talk about. So that is definitely a positive.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, Clemson. Clemson, Clemson, Clemson. I don't even know where to begin with this one. Um,
Texas is favored
it's
by 11 and a half. Clemson has played two SEC teams this year.
and
Were curb
lost.
stomped by Georgia, lost to South Carolina. I will say this much about Clemson. Um, I've watched them a lot this year. Like I've said before, I am a professional football watcher. I do love to watch football, and I've watched them a lot. They have gotten better as the year has went on. Um, I definitely think, though, they just have not been the same since they lost Brent Venables running their defense. They've kind of dropped off, but they have gotten a little bit better. I just don't think they're a playoff team, and we ranted about this last week, and I'm not going to get on that rant again. I know there are those out there that are screaming that they earned their way into the playoffs. They won their conference. They played their way. Yeah, because they're in a sorry conference. Um, they have gotten better. I just don't think that they have what it takes. Question I've got for you. We discussed this last week as well, and Texas has lost to Georgia. Does Sark turn to Arch Manning a little bit more in this game?
I would like to think so, just because of the numbers that Lenore Seller put up against Clemson. I would like to think that he would want to utilize a mobile quarterback more. Would like to throw them off the trail of Quinn Ewers a little bit, sort of mixing things up. Um, just being a fan, I would want to see that more. Not going to say that that's happened. I'm not going to say that that is in the game plan or anything like that. What I will say is what we've harped on week in and week out about Texas's defense. This will be one of the best defenses that Clemson has faced all year long. Yes, I know Clemson's red zone efficiency is good, but Texas's defensive red zone efficiency is better. Um, and anytime that Clemson plays a team with a pulse, which is few and far in between, they've lost. Louisville had a pulse midseason, and they played them, lost to them. Georgia at the beginning of the season, South Carolina at the end of the season. So, but when you look at it on paper, yes, Clemson has the numbers, but like you said, they are in a sorry conference to where they got those numbers in the first place. And I just think Texas's defense is going to be way too much for them to handle. Not to mention Sark, what we saw him do in the first half of the SEC championship game, with all the motions, with all the running back outs to get the linebackers biting and then looking in the backfield to get passes across the middle. I don't think Clemson's defense is ready for that.
So here's my key stat for this game. Again, this is an SEC podcast. We're going to talk heavy about the SEC here, and I've made up my mind. I'm picking every SEC team throughout both seasons to win by 50. Just kidding, but I will be an SEC homer throughout the both season. But here's my key stats. Clemson has played two SEC teams in 8 quarters. In 8 quarters against two pretty good SEC defenses, they've scored a total of 17 points. Cade Klubnik for the season, the quarterback for Clemson, he has over 3,300 yards passing, 458 yards rushing. He has 40 touchdowns on the season. In those two games against SEC teams, he has 0 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Yep.
So you can see that he puts up big numbers against the ACC competition. But whenever he stepped into the ring with the big boys, he's found himself flat on his back in the center of the mat pretty quickly. Um, Texas has a very, very good run defense, very good defensive line, very good front seven. Um, Texas has been one of those teams that have handled the mobile quarterbacks pretty well. Uh, I just don't I just don't think Clemson will have much success. The biggest weakness that Clemson has on their team is their offensive line. That was
Yeah.
very evident in the very first game of the season against Georgia. They could do nothing. They had no time to do anything. And I think you're going to see much of the same. I do believe that we will see a little bit of Arch Manning kind of an as needed basis. And what I mean by as needed is I think we may see a little bit of him early on in the game, trying to mix in the run, trying to mix in some quarterback run, um, trying to get that offense going. If the offense gets going and they get up by 10, 14, 17 points, then I think you may kind of see it dialed back. Um, Part of me thinks that Sark didn't utilize Arch Manning a lot in the SEC championship game with his legs, maybe because he was wanting to save it for these playoff games. Um, but I do think you'll start to see some more of that this week. Just kind of incorporate him, just kind of a spark off of the bench.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't, I don't think he wanted to put Arch out on film in the last 2 weeks, but I would love to see it. I would love to see it. I think everybody in America wants to see it. So, Sark, if you watch this, do it.
Absolutely. Sark called me earlier. He told me he was waiting for the episode to drop.
He was. I know he was. Really, really close friends. We are with Steve Sarkeesian. Anyway, my score, I'm going to be going with Tejas, horns up, baby, 35-14, and they're covering.
So I'm saying Texas 27-13. I think this will be a little bit more on the low scoring side. The over under for this game is 51 and a half. I've got them both scoring 40 points combined. So I definitely think you take the under in this game. But I do like Texas to win by a couple of touchdowns. And this is where the SEC really, really, really needs to make a statement. The final thoughts from last week's episode, I kind of got on here and ranted about the 9-3 SEC teams, about how they should be in over some of these teams like Clemson and SMU, which I know Clemson got an automatic bye, but I think that's a stupid rule anyway. Same thing with Boise State. I think Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina would go have a legitimate chance to win this whole thing versus Boise, Indiana, and Clemson. SMU, who I think have absolutely zero chance. But I think the SEC has an opportunity here to really make a statement and show that this is the most dominant conference in America. And I'm hoping that it starts with Texas, and I'm hoping that Texas comes out and makes a statement in this game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They are the 3 o'clock game at DKR Texas Memorial Stadium. And with that, we move into our night game slot on December 21st for the first round against the Tennessee Volunteers, traveling to Ohio Stadium, 7 p.m. kick. Conditions, not really sure what the conditions are going to be, but I can tell you it's going to be cold. I just left from New York, and it was blistering, so it's going to be cold.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I have heard that a lot. Is that these SEC schools are going to be going up north and they're going to be playing in this cold weather and this, and this. So let me ask you this question.
It's doable.
Let me ask you this question. You got SMU going to Penn State, going to College Station. You've got Tennessee going to Ohio State. When's the last time that Ohio State played a home game in December? When's the last time Penn State played a home game in December? Most of even the northern teams, most of them are done the week before Thanksgiving, and if they make it to a conference championship game, it's in a dome. Yep. So it's not like they're used to playing in their frigid cold. Yeah, every so often, in late November there might be a snowstorm or something kick through one of these places, but for the most part, playing in 20-degree weather, that's going to be uncharted territory for Ohio State as well. It's going to be uncharted territory for Penn State as well. So, I mean, I don't really think that gives either team an advantage. It's just like playing in the rain. Both teams have to play in the rain. Both
Yep.
teams have to play in the cold. It's not like Tennessee's going to be playing, and when they've got the ball, it's going to be 20 degrees, and when Ohio State's got the ball, it's going to be 75. They're both going to be dealing with the conditions. So I don't think that's going to be that big of a factor. I think that's just more of a talking point.
I think it is too. A money racketing scheme to create talking points on television. I do, however, foresee a volunteer victory in this one. How are you feeling about it?
I'm kind of torn. Like I said, this is an SEC podcast. I'm definitely going to pick Tennessee to win the game officially. Um, I don't know, man. Ohio State is kind of that mystery team. Going into the season, they were supposed to be the best team that money could buy. They brought
Hmm.
in all these big, high-profile transfers. They brought in, Quinshon Judkins from Ole Miss, Caleb Downs from Alabama. They sent Kyle McCord packing to Syracuse. They bring in Will Howard. So they've got this enormous payroll. I've seen something to where it's estimated that their payroll for this team this year is $23 million, one of the tops in college football. So they've assembled this team, and quite frankly, I think it's safe to say they've underperformed this year.
Yes.
So I really don't know what Ohio State team we're going to be getting. Going back to championship weekend, they were sitting at home because they lost the previous week to Michigan. That just blows my mind that they allowed Michigan to come into their house and beat them after Michigan has pretty much dominated them, the last three seasons. So I don't know. I don't know what team we're going to be getting from Ohio. I don't know which one shows up.
Yeah, it's difficult to say. I will say that I think defense. It depends on what defense for what team shows up. So Ohio State actually has the seventh ranked rushing defense in the country, while Tennessee has the eighth ranked. So both teams are pretty efficient in stopping the run. Ohio State does have a two punch to where they can send out Trayvon Henderson and then they can send out Quinshon Judkins. So they kind of got a 1-2 punch to where both bats can stay heavy. And then on the other side, you have a tank in Dylan Sampson, who led the SEC in rush yards and touchdowns this year. So it's hard to pick. Which obviously, like we said, we're SEC homers. We're going to go with Tennessee, but it's hard because both teams are going to try to establish a run early, and I think that Tennessee has the better opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I do too. And when you go back through Ohio State's schedule,
Yeah.
um, Nebraska gave them fits. Nebraska was one of the better defenses that they played. Yes, they ended up winning the game 21-17. They were held to 285 total yards by Nebraska. Michigan, Michigan held them to 252 yards. So
Mm-hmm.
so they have shown that they can they can pretty much be shut down offensively. Now, defense has been carrying them much like it has with Tennessee. We know back in the middle of the season, Tennessee had like a 3-game stretch against Arkansas, Florida, and Alabama to where they didn't score a point in any of the first halves of those 3 games in a row. So both of these teams have had, the lackluster performances from offense. But it's kind of head scratching when you look at both of these teams because you've got a great offensive mind in Josh Heupel, and when you go back and you watch that 2022 Tennessee Volunteer team, how they could just stretch the field and take those shots, and put up 40 and 50 points a game. To fast forward 2 years later, well, now a Josh Heupel led team is winning with defense. A year ago, when the season ended, you had Ryan Day. Kind of make some staff changes. brought in Chip Kelly, who has always been thought of as one of the most innovative offensive minds in the game of football. You bring in Chip Kelly, and the first 2 or 3 weeks of this season, you had Ohio State putting up points. Um, you had Tennessee scoring 70 against Kent State. I mean, both of these teams, the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, just absolutely looked like they were unstoppable. And now, as we've gotten into conference play, they both kind of backed off and turned more into defensive teams. So this is really, if I'm looking at it, this is one that I could see going either way. Another question I've got for you: there are rumors circulating that after the Michigan debacle, that Ohio State fans are protesting, and many of which are selling their tickets on the secondary market. And apparently, Tennessee Vol fans are just snatching them up. If Tennessee goes into the horseshoe and they bring about 25, 30, 35,000 Vol fans strong into that place and kind of take over the shoe in a playoff game, I think that's a telltale sign for Ryan Day. That tells me that Ryan Day better win if he wants to keep his job.
Yep, absolutely. The Michigan game was I'm not going to say it was. I am going to say it. The Michigan game was the beginning of the end of the Ryan Day train at Ohio State. Um,
You think Ryan Day's gone,
I'm not going to
or
say he's
you or,
gone.
or are
I'm
you saying
referring
it's more the beginning
to
of the end?
it's more it's the beginning of the end. It's the beginning of the fire under the seat of Ryan Day, to where the flames are being stoked now, and he is starting to sweat. That's what I'm getting at. And like you said, he needs to win. If he goes out there and they lay a deuce egg in the first round, it is not going to be good from the boosters at Ohio State. It will not be good from the fans at Ohio State. Um, like you said, the rumors circulating of fans boycotting the game, it's not a good precedent that's being set.
No, you're absolutely right, and like we've talked about, the offensive numbers are just mind-boggling when you bring in Chip Kelly to lead your offense. The last 5 games of the season, the last 5 games, Ohio State averaged 350 yards per game. You would have never ever led me to believe that from a Chip Kelly offense. But like you say, I can see your point on this. It's crazy to think of a coach going 10-2 and making the playoffs and losing his job. And it may not happen this year, but there's a part of me that thinks maybe it does, because here's the thing: $23 million was spent on assembling this team at Ohio State. That $23 million wasn't just plucked off of a tree. You had a lot of boosters ante up and put that money into the pot. So, like you said, if you go out and you lose this game, um, you're going to have a lot of boosters to answer to. So, Ryan Day may not lose his job immediately, but like you
No,
said, this is definitely going to put him on the hot seat, to where I could see the first chance they get to get rid of him, that they may do it. Or on the flip side, who's to say that Ryan Day doesn't say, forget all this and maybe go try to get an NFL job?
very well could. Very well could.
I will use this time, though, to quickly interject my SEC bias once again and say that it is absolutely ridiculous that Tennessee is not hosting a
Yeah.
first round playoff game. No reason why a 10-2 SEC team should be traveling in the first round.
Nope. Not at all. Not at all. Especially with the wins that Tennessee has. Um,
Absolutely.
Score, man, score. Um, oh, it's so hard. You go
I am
first.
going Tennessee 24-20.
Hmm.
I think this comes down to the very end. I think the difference is Dylan Sampson in the second half sort of begins to wear the Ohio State defense down a little bit. He starts to plug away and pick up some yardage, and Nico is starting to show that he can complete some passes. Going back to the last time we saw them against Vanderbilt, Um, we seen a lot of yards after catch, receivers, catching the ball in stride on a quick slant, taking it 80 yards to the house and helping your quarterback. You're starting to see a little bit of that big play. I think Tennessee hits maybe one big plays and just grinds out 24 points. And like we've seen Ohio State struggle against good defenses, I think they struggle again. And I think Tennessee goes into the shoe and comes out with a win, 24-20 balls.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you there. I think that their efficiency in the run game. I think that this will be a trench battle. And if you look at the numbers, I think Tennessee's O line is way better than Ohio State's defensive line, especially this year. Um, I'm going to go Tennessee 21-17. I do think it will be close. I think you have the 1-2 punch on Ohio State's side with Quinshon Judkins and Trayvon Henderson, not to mention Jeremiah Smith, the touted freshman receiver. Uh, those guys will make some plays, but also the Volunteer secondary is pretty good this year, pretty solid. And so I think that in the second half, they either the run game is stalled out and Nico's hitting shots, or Dylan Sampson is just absolutely running through people's faces over and over and over again. So,
Again, another one of those games to where Ohio State was looked at all season long as the cream of the crop in the Big Ten. Everybody was looking forward to the big rematch with Oregon, in which they lost, a one-score game at Oregon earlier on in the season, and then they laid the egg against Michigan. This is a chance for the SEC to go into Columbus, Ohio, make a statement, and pull out a victory.
yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Not to mention, I think that Tennessee's defensive line has held their opponents to like 2 point something rushing yards this year on average. So, and they've averaged over 5. So, taking the balls in this one for the rushing game.
Absolutely.
And so, with that, we move to our final thoughts of this episode.
Yep. So again, it's a short episode. Next week will be a little bit longer as we have several bowl games to break down, things like that. But my final thoughts for tonight. At this time of the year, we've got to mention the transfer portal. That's where I'm going to go with my final thoughts. I want SEC fan bases to just relax, just chill out. Okay. Other fan bases love to troll one another. Every time one of your players gets in the portal, every fan base in the SEC, especially your rivals, they're going to jump on there on social media and they're going to start screaming that the sky is falling, the Titanic is sinking, your team is done, it's over with. Let's do a little bit of quick math real quick, okay? On average, you bring in 25 players per recruiting class, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you bring in 25 players per year for 4 years, that's 100 players. So every year, just to make the numbers work out of the 25 players that you bring in, you're gonna need 5 or 6 of those guys to not make it. You're gonna need 5 or 6 of those guys to transfer out because you've got to get down to 85 scholarships. So I'll use Alabama as an example right here. At the Iron Bowl for Senior Day, Alabama had, I think, 10 scholarship players participate in Senior Day. So they had 85 players on scholarship at the Iron Bowl. 10 participated in Senior Day. That takes them down to 75 players. They signed 22 in the early signing window in December. That takes them up to 97 players. The day the season ended and those players signed, Alabama had to have 12 players enter the portal just to get back down to the 85 scholarship limitations. I think you're seeing with Danny Lewis Jr. and Mbakwe coming back, I think the number's around 10 or 11, 12 right now. So it's about where it needs to be to have a full roster. And if you start looking at your favorite team and you start doing this same type of math, look at the number of players that were signed, look at the number of players that are leaving and graduating or going to the NFL, you're going to see that there's only a handful of roster spots available. Now, there are some exceptions. Teams like Mississippi State, they've got 19 guys in the portal.
Yep.
Kentucky's got 20 guys in the portal. Arkansas's got 24 players in the portal. Why do they have a larger number? Because they had disappointing seasons. They're trying to flip their rosters completely. And so they're sending guys packing, and they're trying to bring in quality players from the portal that can help their team. So like I say, all fan bases when it comes to this transfer portal, you just need to relax. Now, if I'm a Mississippi State fan, I probably am a little bit concerned that my starting quarterback walked and went to LSU to be a backup. If I'm Arkansas, 24 is a little high. They've had a starting offensive lineman and a starting tight end transfer out and go commit to Ole Miss. To me, that's when I start to worry if I'm a fan. When I start to see proven starters, proven multi-year starters, especially when those guys are transferring out and they're leaving and they're going elsewhere, that's when I think it's a problem. But if
Mm-hmm.
your team has a bunch of backups and second and third string guys that are not able to get on the field, especially guys that only have like 1 or 2 years of eligibility remaining and they're trying to go somewhere where they can play and get on the field and make a name for themselves and possibly have a shot at the NFL, I wouldn't worry so much about that. Don't worry about who's leaving your program in the transfer portal until you start losing proven starters. Does it hurt everybody's depth? Yes, it hurts everybody's depth, but that's the landscape of college football these days. That's just something that everybody's going to have to deal with. So, again, to quote Aaron Rodgers, everybody just relax. Relax.
Absolutely. And the thing that you see some elite coaches who have been able to maintain depth, and the team that I'm looking at mainly when I'm talking about this is Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with what's the kid's name? Gunnar Stockton. There it was. You see teams who have done such a good job, especially in the new age with NIL, transfer portal, and all this, to where gaining and holding depth is now the name of the game in any situation, because at any given time, your second, third, fourth strings can say, all right, I'm going to go to a small school and play. Bump this. This ain't for me, and that's fine. That's their prerogative. That they can do that. They can do that. The NCAA has yet to put a cap on anything, so they're free to do what they want. But the name of the game is gaining and keeping depth, and teams like Georgia, and Tennessee is another one of those teams that have done a good job of keeping depth in.
Well, and even though they have done a very good job, let's also not act like the portal has not um, dealt them their fair share
Oh
of
yeah,
heartache
no,
as well. I mean,
absolutely not.
you had Humphrey, the defensive back from Georgia, who started multiple games this season, kind
Mm-hmm.
of kind of got benched for better players. Ninth, 10th, 11th game of the year, and all of a sudden, right before the SEC championship game, all right, I hadn't played the last couple of weeks. I'm going to go enter the portal. I mean, I don't like that. I don't like that, but it is the college football that we're watching in this day and time. But again, if you'll just start looking at your team's roster numbers and how many people are graduating, how many are expected to go to the NFL, and how many you brought in your recruiting class, you're going to see that in most cases, if your team is being built through high school recruiting, and most teams are, the successful teams, the way Nick Saban did things, the way Kirby Smart does things, successful teams build through high school and they use the portal to supplement. Those
Yes.
type teams are always going to lose more every year in the portal than what they gain. Now, teams that, like Lane Kiffin's model, Lane Kiffin, he's not going to spend very much money at all on a high school senior. Lane
No.
Kiffin is going to get who he can get, and all of their NIL money is going to be sitting in a pot, and they're waiting to see who jumps in the portal, and that's when they're going to go be big spenders. So at Ole Miss, you're going to see teams like Ole Miss LSU does that to a certain extent. You're going to see those two teams every year make a huge splash in the transfer portal. They're going to be two of the leading teams in recruiting rankings in the transfer portal because that's their method. Can that be sustained? I don't know. When you look at Florida State, they've kind of had that model, and look at what it got them this year. So we'll see if that can hold up. Another team that comes to mind is Oregon. It seems like every single year or every other year, Oregon is getting a transfer quarterback to come in. Lincoln Riley did it when he was at Oklahoma. They're getting these transfer quarterbacks to come in. When you're always banking on who's going to be in the portal, what happens when that stud's not in the portal? You get stuck with a DJ Uiagalelei, and you end up going 2-10. So to
Mm-hmm.
each their own.
Hey, absolutely. Absolutely. My final thought is a question to you and a question to our audience. With the recent events in our nation's history, it seems that we have sleeveless Bill Belichick, baby, is coming to the college world for the
The
first
hoodie.
time. The hoodie master. I'm telling you, man, UNC Chapel Hill is back. He is going to run. No, I'm just playing. I'm speaking out of my rear end. I'm shocked. I cannot believe that he did this. This was one of those things that you look at and you're like, that's a headliner, because that is, I would never have guessed that in a million years.
Well, North Carolina, in their coaching search, they wanted to go get a much younger, much more energetic
Yes.
guy than Mac Brown. So they sent the 73-year-old packing, and they got a
And got
much
a
younger 72-year-old
76.
Bill Belichick. But
Yeah.
hey, if you guys have seen the meme floating around, and I don't know who originally put it out because I'd like to give that person credit for it. But the picture of Bill Belichick with his 20-something-year-old girlfriend. Looks like they're riding a golf cart together. Somebody posted that picture all over social media and said, "Don't worry about Bill. He knows how to recruit young people." Hey, my man, when you got it, you got it.
Hey, if you got it, you got it. But everybody, comment below. Please tell me what you think. You think it was a good hire? Do you think he's going to do well? Do you think that they will win an ACC championship here in the future? Maybe even make the college football playoff? Can he turn the culture and the program around? Who knows? Um, I
I
think
do
he's going to.
think that North Carolina is one of those sleeping giants. I
I
think
do
there's a
too.
handful of teams that because of where they are in their location, that if they really got serious about college football, you could see them do big things. Clemson was always one of them that I thought, hey, they've got the potential. Um, Terry Bowden not Terry Bowden, Tommy Bowden came into Clemson, and he elevated the program a little bit, and then Dabo came in behind him and just took them to heights that had never been seen before, winning 2 national titles in 3 years. They hadn't won one in 35 years when they won their first one in 2016. But yeah, I just think that North Carolina could possibly be one of those teams that given the right resources, given the right person, they could do some big things. I just don't know if they can do that with a 72-year-old. I mean, is he going to be there long enough to get them from a 6-6, 7-5 team to get them to the promised land? But one thing about it, in the landscape of college football with the transfer portal, all it takes is 1 year to flip a team these days.
Hey, that's it. That is it. I mean, wow. It's crazy. It is crazy.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and get out of here, guys. Like I said, a little bit shorter. Usually we're about an hour, 10 minutes or so. We'll cut it out tonight. Flip our screen back as we're going off, Tyler, to our social media handles there. Let everybody see that one more time. Again, also we have the Facebook group SEC Mafia. Choose that. It should be public to where you can join. On the SEC Mafia Facebook page, it is also set up to where you can invite people. So you can invite 10, 15 of your friends to come join that page, and let's kind of get some chatter and some talking going back and forth on there. And again, if you're watching this video and you've made it this far, send it out to 5 or 10 people for us. We set a goal when we started this thing. We wanted to hit 100 views, and we were blessed. We actually did that on our very first video. So now we just kind of want to keep climbing. Let's get to 200 this week. So help us get to 200 views.
Yeah, 200, and like I said, we're not doing this for anything other than just being able to talk college football with every single one of you, because we love to talk college football between us. Why not talk with it with a bunch of people on social media? I mean, and through a podcast. So absolutely, good stuff this week. We will be back next Monday, I believe.
Yes,
So episode should be out next Monday night, Tuesday morning. So be sure to tune in, and like he said, like, subscribe, follow us, comment, send us emails, send it out to 5 friends in your contacts list. That's the goal this week.
absolutely.
So we thank y'all, and we will see y'all next week.
See you guys.